All right. Good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and happy weekends to everyone listening because we are streaming this episode live today for our Live the Fuel fans on Facebook. And yes, it's a Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast, and depending on what time zone is listening, morning for everybody else. So I'm excited to bring on a new guest co-host today because we are going to be talking just a hair about health, maybe just a little bit about lifestyle, because she's someone that I did not know existed. Shout out to a past guest co-host of multiple times over, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Anthony J. of AJ Consulting. For the regular listeners, he and I rocked out a live Facebook feed about my DNA health. Gosh, almost a year and a half ago, maybe even almost 2 years ago. I got to go back and look at those dates. But things have changed and grown so much that he now has coaches. And I got one of them for you guys today. And that's right. We're talking about a DNA health coach. So let me give you the quick skinny on her. So Karen is a former marketing professional. I am a current marketing professional, turned teacher, turned self-taught health enthusiast who has turned away from the standard American diet, aka the SAD diet and lifestyle, as well as the current model of Western medicine to treat and reverse a variety of medical conditions, some more serious than others, for both herself and members of her family. So there's a lot more to her. There's a lot of health here, a lot of science education. For some people, it's just a big mess, and they kind of ignore it and don't even stay on it. But anyway, she's tuning in today from Boston, Massachusetts. She might know a little bit about some fertility, too. So without further ado, Karen Kelly, welcome to the show.
Scott, thanks. I'm real happy to be here.
And by the way, congrats on your first noise-canceling headset. So
just bought special for the occasion.
Yeah, and so yeah, real quick, because I love doing this, we've got a newbie, ladies and gentlemen. That's right.
Indeed.
We are. I've said it before. Pardon the term. We're popping the podcasting cherry, and she's got her first noise-canceling headset because we are her first podcast.
Fact.
In the online digital space, which is great, right? Because didn't you hint that your husband knows a little bit about podcasting?
No, I mean, he produces his own podcast and does it all the time and shares it on social media, promotes it. He's like you. He's like one of those ad-free content guys, and he does a great job at it. And I was telling you before, I'm always laughing at the people who come in here so nervous.
Can we shout out his name?
Yeah, his Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly. And real quick, what's his show?
He does the Mass Construction Show. It's a show about the construction industry specific to Massachusetts. It's actually pretty cool. He had Dr. J on to do his DNA because it's not specific, it's not industry specific. It applies to everybody, but within your industry, you can have, health concerns come up based on the kind of lifestyle you have.
Oh, I'm with you. My largest client, and I do most of my business travel for, is the industry of HVACR. So heating, air conditioning, ventilation, refrigeration. And one of the companies that her company represents that I help them do marketing for and sales for is actually specifically niched in indoor air quality. So indoor air quality is huge. And they deal with like all the high-end filtration, but as well as UV lights and things to sterilize, not just the air, but they have an entire water line, which we are probably going to talk a little about today about cross-contamination in our water supplies. So listen, let's dive in on this. So right off the bat, why did you decide to become a fellow AJ Consulting geek?
I mean, easy. I love that you lobbed me a softball for the first one. I mean, so the backstory here is, Anthony was out here. Well, you call him AJ sometimes. I'm not one of those people.
I have like three different ways of calling him.
Dr. J, but it's all the same guy. But he was out in Boston at BU doing his doctorates for biochemistry. So that's how we met. We ran in similar circles with him and his wife. And so we became
How many years back is that?
Oh, goodness. 5, 8, 5, 6, maybe.
Okay.
Or 7. It was before he was even Dr. J. He was just old like Anthony, just an old country boy trying to catch a fish,
Yeah, which he still does go catch a fish.
He still is. Yeah, he still is that guy, just a real smart one. But so we became friends and spent a lot of time together. And we had a lot of just table conversations about like health and wellness, and he knows my story pretty well. So when he started to grow AJ Consulting and add on the coaches so that people could get access to this, he gave me the opportunity to join in. And it's like, I mean, if you think the guy is great and you really respect what he does, or the girl, whoever, like the answer is like, let me think about it. Yes, I would love to do that because he's remarkable and he's doing some great work, and I'm psyched to be part of it.
Well, I love the fact that you and I cross paths a little bit on the business, the marketing side of things too, because I tell people all the time, like, I didn't always just choose to become a sales and marketing professional over the years. I mean, I'm a former firefighter, and before
Mm-hmm.
that, I was a corporate space guy. I spent time in IT. I spent time in telecom. I grew up as a farm kid too, so that's where, AJ and I get along on that side of the fence. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so I always remind people that, actually part of the show's purpose too is reminding people, like, it's okay to change gears
Mm-hmm.
and adapt and learn new things.
Yeah.
Especially, which what I'm hearing is you stumble across something that's actually taps even more into your passion
Yeah.
and something you care so much more about.
Yeah. What I like about this and what I've learned from this is, to be in my fields, my previous work, I
Mhm.
had to be very specialized, very highly trained and highly educated, and I was a specialist. And in this work with Anthony, it's like I am self-taught, but I've been vetted through him, right? Because he knows that I know what I'm talking about. But it has really taught me a little bit about humility, like I'm not in a position to say that I'm a specialist. Um, I'm I've read a lot about this stuff. And so I am very well aware that because I haven't heard anybody else say these words, I might even be mispronouncing some of them. But
Mhm.
the concepts, the ideas are solid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it just helps me remember, like, something, I'm not perfect, and it's okay to say I'm not perfect. And that was something that took me years to come to. It's okay to not be right all the time, as long as you're giving good information.
Yes.
Um,
And accepting and being truthful that if you don't know something,
yeah,
if this is something I've coached and trained people on the sales side forever, I was like, listen, guys or ladies or gentlemen,
right.
um, if you don't know something, that little adism about fake it till you make it,
Hmm.
okay, be careful with that.
Hmm.
If you definitely don't know something, most of the time in the business world, at least, I respect somebody more who says, I don't know the answer to that just yet,
Right.
but I know people that do. Let me
Hmm.
get back to you. Can you
Yeah.
give me a day? Can you give me a week? Whatever the timeline is. And I much more respect that.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree with you. Yeah. And I think that's hard to do sometimes when you're the guy or the woman in the room who's supposed to be the guy who knows stuff.
Yeah.
It's harder to do, but I've sat in on some of the DNA calls that Anthony has done. And even, I mean, gosh, you know how smart this guy is,
Mm,
but even he has said, hey, that's a good question. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if scientists know this yet. If we do, I certainly don't. And
yeah.
maybe we'll look into it. And like, when I heard him say that, I'm like, man, he's one of the smartest people I know. And I just learned a lot from that, from him.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's actually pretty inspiring because he, he's the PhD, right?
Hmm.
He's not trying, he wasn't trying to become a coach per se, but
Hmm.
if he's passing on his knowledge and his software technology and everything else that his coaches like you are using, whether you like it or not, you are a teacher, you are a
Hmm.
coach, however you want to call it, teacher, coach, whatever, but you do have to pass that on. And if you
Yeah.
can make it translatable and understandable to people like yourselves, that
Yeah.
makes it even easier for you then to translate it and make it more
Yeah.
understandable to the consumer.
Yeah. And what he sees too is like, by profession, I'm a teacher. So he knows that I have the skill to distill things down for people to understand. And that's why he wants me on the team, not because, I'm a biochemist,
Yeah.
right? Because that would be pointless.
And I've learned that from public speaking. I've been increasing, I've actually been having fun. My wife says I do talk too much, but hey, if people are going to pay me to talk, I'm all right with it, right? So,
Hmm.
but I've learned that in speaking too, is I usually like to speak about, obviously subjects I'm passionate about.
Mm.
But again, if you're a great learner and you want to pass the knowledge on, great. I'm going to acquire this knowledge, and now I can pass it on in a public speaking venue. And
Hmm.
then if there's some Q&A afterwards, and people bring up questions I can't specifically answer right then and there, I'll say, listen, let me take note of that. Let me get back to you on that.
Hmm.
Because I do value people's questions, and I do want to get the answers back to them. I
Hmm.
tell people time on the podcast, it's like I've been running this show for over 3 years, and I've learned, oh my God, like exponentially more
Hmm.
thanks to running a show, listening to people like yourself and AJ. And I tell people all the time, like, okay, well, I might learn it in about a week or two, depending on who I get on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
So,
truth is, where it comes to learning new concepts, sometimes you just need to hear it over and over and over again.
mhm,
So, like, I know you've had Anthony on a lot of times, and I'm sure there are some concepts that keep coming up.
mhm.
And, after you hear it 2, 3 times, you can really retain it. And the same is true for your audience. Sometimes they hear every episode, but there are people out there who are only hearing every 3 episodes. And so for those people, that kind of repetition is really helpful.
Well, yeah, this happened today. We were at the CrossFit competition, and this one girl standing next to me drinking a Red Bull.
Oh, geez.
And then the other girl is next to me drinking that. I don't know, the big tall green can, whatever
Yeah.
that one was.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, God, you guys are literally consuming poison.
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, but it's okay. There's zero sugar. And I was like, no, there isn't. And like, what do you mean? It says right there on the grid. And I'm like, you don't read the grid, you read the paragraph. And then
Yeah.
you go into the paragraph, and the very first words in the words in the paragraph go in order based on quantity of ingredient. And they're like, how do you know all this? I was like, I didn't. I've learned it
Yeah.
on the show. And
Yeah.
then I paused and I said, listen, we're here having fun. It's like if you took one homework assignment, go back and listen to such and such episode with such and such expert. Like I just like, dude, and it's not in my database of podcasts, I would then go listen to this podcast show or this expert. They have the knowledge. So I love being able to actually just direct and connect. I love that piece. Directing and connecting is so freeing too, because then I don't have to sit there and I'm not trying to be a know-it-all. I love being able to answer questions, but I'm like, I'd rather have you hear it from the expert.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, so many people, it's incredible. Like so many people are like that today where, you know, they have this enormous focus and commitment to their health and well-being. I mean, you were at a CrossFit competition. I mean, these are some pretty great athletes.
Oh, yeah.
And this is still kind of what they're consuming. You know, they just aren't getting great information,
No.
you know, so they need things like this because, you know, what good is your doctor's office, really?
Well, and you listen to a couple of shows. So the thing I'm now reminding everybody, especially over the past year, is my new a new extra tagline is, it's okay. We're all just at a different place in the timeline. Okay. I started getting heavily into podcasts probably 5-6 years ago. After a couple of years of that, I'm like, wait a minute. I have a platform that I want to launch. I want to help other people get their voices out there. And then boom, I launched my own show.
Yeah.
But didn't plan on that.
Right.
And again, I mean, now where I'm at in the timeline, I'm definitely much further, but I'm still not as far as people that are way more explosive shows like Dr. Drew Pinsky, for example, or Joe Rogan, or my client, Vinny Tortorich. Like these guys have massive shows and massive reaches because they've been doing it longer. So we're all going to always be at a different place in the timeline. All I tell people is like, at least take the step forward. Don't take a step backwards.
Right.
So yeah. So DNA coaching.
Yeah.
That's a thing now. Like, what was that a thing? Was there before you guys and AJ? Like, was that a title?
I don't know that it was. I kind of think that he might have made it up.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he should trademark that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is, we talked about this a little bit before, but you know, I love that he didn't go to medical school. I love that he became a biochemist and is doing things this way because it gets him out of that sort of that rat race of like prescribe, you know, and then kick him out of your office and prescribe and kick him out. He instead is saying like, here, I'm going to do this work. And he does great work and he's impacting people on a grand scale, but you know, he can't do it all. And people were having to wait months to speak with Anthony and pay. It started out at like pretty low price point. I think it was like $300-400. Yeah. But he cannot sustain that because, you know, again, it takes
time is money.
Time is money. And he's worked really hard to get where he is. Yeah. And so he's kind of running the show, but he doesn't need to necessarily talk to everybody. So he scaled it by adding a couple of us. I think there are 3 of us now. So you get some choice when you go to his website. You kind of see who resonates with you. There's a guy.
We haven't done some screen sharing yet. Let's do that while you're saying that. So, because I haven't been. Oh yeah, there I am. I forgot that he embedded some of the podcasts. Okay,
oh, yeah,
that's fun.
Thing. So if you go to the DNA analysis link right there, you can click on DNA analysis, and then there are a couple of coaches who
we have DNA coaches.
Yeah. So that's of course he's at the top because he's the top dog.
Oh yeah.
But you can see that things have gone way up to see Anthony. But you could see Sina.
There you are.
There I am. And then there's another one, Coach Maya, right underneath. She's, you know, she speaks to these people who are like really passionate about like super optimizing their performance.
Yeah. I was going to say, I bet she niches very well with peak athletes.
Yes. Yeah. So the really elite athletes, those people tend towards Anthony. I think they're willing to wait to get like the extra that he can provide in the conversation. But Sina and Maya and I, we kind of, you can see we're very different. Like people just pick who kind of resonates with them. You know, I love this work so much. It's funny. I have a job. My husband owns his own business. I work for him.
Nice.
But this is like what I just do because I love it and because it's important. And it just kind of, this, I mean, to use your lingo, like this is what kind of fuels me. I'm
Yeah.
really inspired by the people that I talk to. A lot of times it's, people who just want to get the most out of life. Sometimes it's people who are really sick and are trying to figure stuff out. Like, how can I unwind this sickness?
Well, that's what connected in my brain just now when you said that people were waiting that long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not granted, especially here in the United States, like we're definitely an on-demand society. I made a joke earlier this morning with somebody. I was like, man, we have so many first world problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, literally what we're doing right now, being able to sit on a podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about DNA health, maybe, tap into some of my stuff again. And it's like, people in another country just happy to have clean, healthy food on a table. Hell, happy to have clean water.
Right.
And we take all these things for granted. So it's pretty cool though. I mean, that aside, it's pretty cool that we can do this.
It is cool.
Yeah.
And, what I'd say to that though is, here we are in our first world and having real problems with the water quality and real problems with, the nutrient density in our plant foods and even our animal products, because we're kind of screwing it up. Like people
We've been screwing it up for over 50 years.
That's what I mean, and now we're really struggling. So it's like, yeah, we do have some first world problems, but we also have some, enormous problems that come with that territory. And that's
the impact of our pharmaceutical industry has people underestimate it. And that's the problem. Like, and again, there's some purists out there that say, well, if it wasn't, don't forget that, before the drug was created, it came from raw ingredients sourced from the Amazon and there's some powerful herbs. I'm like, yeah, but look what we've created from that purity. Look what the side effects are in your body. And then look what you're peeing into your toilet that, because that's the first world problem. We have toilets and plumbing. And then we're pumping that into our water treatment facilities that our cities manage, which have a protocol based on general public health that was never designed to handle this level of toxicity in the water.
Right.
And this stuff isn't even being filtered out. And then it's passing right back into your clean water supply.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, this is an issue of the haves and the have-nots. Like you'll get that water, filtration system into your house. I'll get it too. Anthony already has it.
Because he did the full-blown like max filtration, and then he's doing the remineralization, right? Was that reverse osmosis, and then then you add the good stuff back in.
Yeah, so I had a reverse osmosis filter years. I mean, I've had it so long that it broke, and I have to get a new one. I just kind of haven't gotten around to it. But this is something that you and I have access to. Most people don't. Most people don't even know it's an issue.
But here's the best part: we're talking about pharmaceuticals. A non-first world problem is you don't have to worry about going to another country and drinking their level of clean water, because they are filtering it, but they don't have the concentration of pharmaceuticals. Right. So they might actually be in a better situation.
Right? As long as you don't get some weird bacteria that
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Like, for example, there's a lot of these nonprofits that are trying to help people get clean water in Africa and remote villages around the world. So once they dig a well, and once they set up a pump system and they get a basic filtration, that's probably cleaner water.
Yeah,
possibly.
That's a great point.
I mean, without me doing a lab experiment or having a water guy go out and test and compare, I'm like, well, right off the bat, if you dug a fresh well into a ancient water supply that's never been tapped into and you put a filtration system on it, there's no pharmaceuticals down there, I would hope, in another country.
Yeah, and if only pharmaceuticals was the only contributor, right? There's all these other
well, look at our landfills that are leaching into the water tables, which are full of plastics. I mean, actually, let's refresh the people listening to this, guys. Okay. Like, we're not trying to create like end of the world conversation here, even though it's going that way. But that's how I got to know, AJ. I mean, Anthony J is a bit of a guru when it comes to the impacts of plastics on our natural hormones, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of like, would you consider that one of the most impactful things that got you to geek out about him?
Oh, it's the first thing that got me. So we met and we talked, and it's cool. But when he wrote Estrogeneration, I mean, and I'm sure you have heard that, but you've maybe listened to it instead of read it. But if you've
actually, I have the physical and the digital.
You do. You have them both, right?
Hey, man, when I meet a great author and a great scientist, I'm making sure I'm buying all their content just because I know it supports them. Yes. Granted, I usually audiobook it, which I did, but then I went back and read it too. So again, ladies and gentlemen, real quick, while you're saying that, I'll just show them on the website here for the video watchers. He's got the books listed right on the site too, and this is already in my Amazon influencer page.
Okay.
on Amazon. People who click through my banner on my website, you'll get to the book section. This is in there. So it's called, I always pronounce it wrong. Is it chagrin or chagrin?
It's chagrin.
Chagrin.
So
See?
chagrin being like, oh, this is too bad, and tonic being like, this is how we solve it. So he does
Yeah.
address, the series is called Chagrin and Tonic, and he has more books under that
Coming.
series, like ready
Yeah.
to come out.
Yeah.
Estrogeneration is the title of this book.
I'm excited for that.
I can't wait.
When the rest of the chapters come, I'm like, dude, I'm jonesing. But I mean, he's also been doing so much research with the Mayo Clinic and everything else. I'm like, I don't know how you have time.
I know, he's a busy guy. I mean, to get back to, though, that book, like, so, we were just talking, but he wrote the book and he needed some feedback and a little bit of editing help and stuff. And so he gave it to me to edit for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I read the book, I was fascinated by it. And also, like, everybody, you need to know this. You need to know that this is happening. Does anybody know that this is happening? I was super enthusiastic about it. And I was like, Anthony, like, I don't care what you do in your life. I want to be part of it. I love this. You write more books. I want to edit them. I can't wait until they're ready for editing because I love that I get to read them before they get released to everybody else.
Ooh.
The
early clearance.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
and
first in.
Estrogeneration is one of those books that, like, I just buy for people all the time. Like, just read this book. You need to have this. Anytime anybody talks about sort of like a hormonal situation or fertility or cancer even, I'm like, listen, you're going to do a lot of things. You're going to read a lot of stuff, but start here. This is a good place to start.
Hey, I switched. It took me a little while to convince the wife, but I eventually moved anything like for reheating material. I got rid of all the plastic Tupperware. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was on our wedding list. We got our wedding list. We got married back in March, and I had on there like the glass, glass Tupperware, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't think you can't really call it Tupperware.
Containers, yeah.
Glass containers. And even that's not perfect because they still sell them with a plastic lid.
Yeah.
So it's like you gotta find that.
But as long as it's not hot, as long as it's not hot coming into contact. I mean, one of the things I learned from Anthony is, BPA has that really great marketing machine behind it. Like, BPA is so bad for you. But the truth is BPA is not even the worst of it. It just, for some reason, that's what stuck with us in terms of messaging.
And what I learned from him was it's really, as you just hinted, it's the heat and the contact because it's the leaching, right? So it's like, okay, well, if the food is laying in the glass dish, granted, even if there's a vented plastic lid on top, that's still way better than cooking in any form of plastic Tupperware, plastic wrap, all that stuff.
Yeah. And, it's not just about getting BPA free. You're right to get glass because the other, the plastics they use in place of BPA sometimes are worse than BPA. So, you just got to be an informed consumer.
Well, and I believe we're going to tap into a little bit, kind of like a refresh on the health analysis that Anthony did of mine. But before we got to that, because I really want to make sure people understand you and why you're being brought to the forefront and why, AJ reached out to me and he's like, hey man, he's like, are you game to bring on my coaches? I'm like, absolutely, dude. If they know what you know, like, cool. so you clearly have a major impact discussion around fertility.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that.
Okay. So I think that's why Anthony sent me your way. Particularly because I know you have a lot of people in your audience who are a little younger. You've got some millennials and people in their 20s. And it's like, I don't, like we've talked before, I don't have a platform to talk about this, but you do. And so I think that's why he sent me to you because, I heard a statistic a couple of years ago, and I'm curious if it still holds true, but I think Chris Kresser on one of his podcasts, he said by the year 2020, 1/3 of women will be infertile. And that's a staggering number of people. Like for more than 3 people out of every 10 will not be able to have children. And that's just the women. And he didn't even really address the infertility issues with men in that statistic. So like for those younger people now who are just kind of launching into adulthood and starting to make those choices, like I'm coming to you from the future. I was one of those people. I was infertile. My husband and I were married for 10 years. I'm sorry, 14 years actually. But when I got pregnant with our son, we have one son, but only because, I had to do it myself. I had to reverse the infertility myself. It was like, I had all kinds of symptoms in my reproductive system that didn't seem to make sense. Like this hurts, I'm getting pain here, this is really uncomfortable. And every time I would go to a physician and say this, it's like, you know what? I got something for you. You could take the pill and that will make your symptoms go away. And I'm like, no, I want to, but can we figure out what's going on in here? Because I feel like something's wrong. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I'm not hearing a root cause analysis.
nope, not at
Yeah.
all. And I think I went to 3 or 4 OBGYNs and my general practitioner. I didn't get anywhere. And I was starting to really be a worrier. Like, okay, it's not really about having babies. I was not concerned about getting pregnant. I
Yeah.
was super happy. I
You
didn't
want to
have kids.
understand why your body's in pain.
Yeah, it was more about, I was like, am I going to die?
Yeah.
Do I have cancer? Is this a huge thing? Like, I don't know what's going
Because
on.
pain is your body talking to you.
Exactly.
People don't understand. Like, guys, if you want to cut it down to the basics, again, I know this is coming from a non-doctor. You're a non-doctor, but I'm like, guys, like, okay, if I fall and hit something really hard, it's gonna hurt.
Yep.
So if stuff inside of my body just starts hurting on its own,
Yeah.
and I didn't hit it, I didn't punch it, I might be concerned. What triggered that?
Sure. It's you're right. It's your body sending you messages, you know? So I decided, like, and it was crazy. And I have to be honest with you, I have a little bit of a beef with that whole system. Like, we talk about like the pill specifically, like it's healthcare, but I was going in looking for healthcare and all I was getting was pain management, and that's not healthcare. So
it's so common these days, though.
You know, every doctor I went to was like, take this pill and get out of my office, you know, and I'm like, that's not going to work for me.
Well, and I don't want to rip on the doctors.
Nope,
I want to sometimes.
No, but in fairness, I'm with you.
It has to be here, at least here in the United States, most of our medical system has become an assembly line. Most of the insurance companies are incentivizing a lot of medical practices to be a assembly line. Like, listen, 10 minutes pop, boom, you get a bonus if you issue a script for and I'm not kidding you, they are literally being incentivized to script a drug. Now, granted, some doctors do not want to do that, and they do care. So I don't want to generalize that statement. No. But that's why, especially this past year, I've been really geeking out about like the blood panel stuff I sent to you is thanks to my chiropractor.
Yeah, I saw that.
She's not just a chiro. She's really, I think, marrying into that functional medicine world. And I've had a few experts on in the past year helping our audience and me too. I learned from this. I didn't realize there was such a massive shift going on over to the functional medicine side, not just the homeopathic, but like actual functional medicine, understanding why things are functioning that way. What are the triggers that are taking it down the negative route? What are the triggers that could bring it back to the positive route? So amazing.
And I think there was like a pendulum swing, you know, it was like we went way far this way with just, you know, identifying symptoms and prescribing medication. It went so far that people were just like, no, like we need to shush it back a little bit.
Yeah.
And there are a whole lot more now than there were when I'm talking about my fertility. I'm good talking about like a decade ago.
Yeah, I know.
And it took a lot of work.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but it is. If you look at the shift that has happened in the industry, it's like, that is a long time ago.
Yeah. You know, so after kind of not being satisfied with the kind of care I was getting, I just started to research it on my own. And I found
Wait, can we pause on that?
Yeah.
What did you just say?
I know, that's the message. Like, literally, that's my message. It's like, take control, do your own thing. You've got to tinker with your own body.
I just recorded a couple shows this week with people, and we talked exactly about that. I've had past people like you bringing this up, taking accountability for your health.
Yeah.
Don't just pass the buck. This is your body, dude. Like, don't blame the doctor who doesn't know how to address it because you're just waiting for the magic pill. No. Okay, if you're not hearing what you need, take accountability. Start doing the research.
Yeah.
And like, again, I don't have time for that. It's your body. It's your health.
Nobody else does if you don't.
Yeah.
You know, and in fairness to the doctors, they didn't become doctors to hurt people, right?
No.
They became doctors to help people, and they're using what they know, right? That's what they're doing. And so if what they know is not good enough for you, you really do have to beat down your own path. So in my research, I came across this book. You know, sometimes like the universe just lines up for you, and that's what happened for me. I'm just really grateful for that. But there's this style of functional medicine that is specific to your reproductive system, specific to women's reproductive systems, really. It's called natural procreative technologies. It's
fancy.
It's super like popular with
natural procreative technologies. It sounds high tech.
It does. And you know what's funny is it's not as high tech as it sounds. It's really popular with people who are very, very religious because they want to not interfere with their body. Like they would not use birth control. They would, you know, stuff like that. So if those people are having trouble achieving pregnancy, they would not, they would avoid like IVF and stuff. Instead, they would try to go this route.
Right.
But now, because people are sort of looking at the risks associated with IVF and like all the drugs that you're putting into your system to achieve that, and because like we were just saying, like so many people are suffering from infertility, people are like willing to look at this thing called natural procreative. It's called NAPRO for short, NAPRO tech.
Oh, NAPRO? Like
NAPRO technology.
NAPRO?
Right.
Okay.
So there's this book I found. It's called NAPRO Technology Revolution, and Unleashing the Power in a Women's Cycle is the subtitle. It's funny, the dust jacket looks like one of those old like douche commercials from the 90s, like all these women just like running down the street.
I remember those commercials.
Yeah.
By the way,
Well,
that stuff is, please, ladies and gentlemen, do not stumble across old douche products. They are actually bad for you.
Yeah, don't use them.
No.
I just took the dust jacket off and like moved on with my life. But when I read about that, it's really a functional medicine approach to the reproductive system for women. And they cited a physician in Massachusetts that was like an hour away. So I started knocking down his door. That's it. There they are. Look at them.
Fast on the keyboard. There we go.
Look at
NAPRO Technology Revolution book. You know what? Normally I have to get these people on the book, but if you are backing this up, I'm putting this in my book club on Amazon. So we're going to add that in. So it's in there. But thank you for bringing that up.
The author is I think he's a doctor, Dr. Thomas Hilgers or Hilgers. I think it's Hilgers.
It was, MD.
Hilgers, MD. So he started an institute out of Omaha in Nebraska, and where he trains people on this stuff. And I think it has a religious name. I think it might be the Pope Paul VI Institute. Okay. Yeah, Pope Paul VI Institute. So again, like, it's really kind of, it speaks to the people who don't want to interfere with their biology. So like the religious tend to go that route.
Okay.
But so the guy who wrote the book is the guy who started the institute. So when I read that book and it cited a doctor in Massachusetts, probably about an hour away from me, I just called his office. Like, listen, I'm in my late 30s or mid 30s at the time, probably. I don't know what's going on with my body, but I can't get any answers and I don't know what to do about it. So, believe it or not, the guy just called me back. I was at work in my classroom, the kids were all gone, and I pick up my double ring, like I'm thinking it's a parent, and it's this Dr. Carpentier out of Massachusetts. Like, what? I couldn't believe he called me back.
Wow.
So that started this process. And what's interesting and funny about this is that, like, there are very few people in my life who even know I did this. I don't really talk about it that much, not because I'm sensitive about it, but infertility is something that makes people really sensitive.
It's a very sensitive subject.
And I don't bring it up because I don't want them to be uncomfortable, really.
Well, because psychologically, some people feel like they could be less of a possible mother, father, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to do what should come naturally.
Exactly.
And they feel self-conscious. There's so much psychology tied to that.
And it feels like a failure, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm failing at this. So, I mean, I never felt like that, which is why, honestly, like I do feel like I have a responsibility to speak up on a platform like this, because I wasn't feeling like a failure. I was having a great life, and I have theories as to why I wasn't bothered by it. Who knows if they're right or wrong, but anyway, so I went down this path with this guy, and on that very first phone call, I explained to him the same symptoms that I had been explaining to the other physicians, and he diagnosed me on the phone. He's like, "You've got endometriosis," and it sounds like a really pretty severe case. Like, wow. Yeah, like,
because he's seen this before.
He's seen it before, and he is a doctor, again, with this, like, he does not a doctor who would use the pill to address this. So he has to.
When you say the pill, you're referring to the pill, right? Like a birth control pill.
Birth control pill, not any old pill, but the birth control pill.
Well, because again, whether it's a pill or any other birth control methodology, you're still changing Mother Nature's natural process. Like, no one technically is ever supposed to be on birth control. If you want to be a complete purist, and it has nothing to do with religion. I'm not religious.
Sure.
Like,
I know.
I'm agnostic.
I'm with you.
It's like, dude, you're changing the natural biology of what's supposed to naturally occur.
Yep.
That's it.
And I do think too, like, we refer to it as healthcare. The rhetoric is a little bit interesting, right? We refer to it as healthcare, but what we're doing is we're taking a system that's probably working okay and making it not work, right? It's sort of like
if you go far enough back in our nutrition, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Our nutritional ideas of improving something. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We totally went around the wrong path.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, as for his purposes, he needed to get to for his patients, he needed to get to the root cause because he wasn't going to treat the symptoms with the only medication that was really available to treat
Wow.
them. So that's what he did. He sent me, and I had like a laparoscopic surgery to kind of reverse the endometriosis. For your listeners who don't know, do you want me to get to the weeds on this? I don't.
It depends.
What it is? Okay.
Is it a long weeds?
No.
Okay.
Endometriosis is when like the endometrial lining of your uterus, instead of just coming out of your body if you don't get pregnant,
right,
it kind of
goes
from
your
back.
natural monthly cycle.
Yeah. It kind of, the blood would like kind of go back into your body, and then your immune response is like, wait, what is that? It doesn't
so
belong
you're
here.
self-attacking, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. And it produces scar tissue and stuff. And so what they do is they just kind of put a laser in there. Like I have a couple of tiny incisions on my stomach. They put in a laser and a light and another little thing to suck out whatever they laser off. They just lasered off all of the scar tissue.
So the body didn't naturally expel what is normally expelled.
Right.
Ergo that time of the month or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
It, would you say, got stuck in there because of a failed process?
Yeah, and I think the mystery, at least to my knowledge, I still don't think we know why it does that. It's sort of weird. Like, why does it go back in instead of just? It seems like coming out would just be easier, but it does, and so it creates scar tissue, and it does a few things. It strangles your ovaries, it strangles your fallopian tubes, and it also sets your hormones a little bit cuckoo.
Well, plus if you're because your immune system is designed to keep you healthy, or supposedly, and then it's going to attack that. That's going to trigger inflammation, and anything around the word inflammation inside of our human body is triggered to disease and all kinds of other side effects. It's just we want to remove as much inflammation as possible.
Yeah. So that's where he started. I mean, I never even saw the guy. He just diagnosed me over the phone and sent me to a specialist.
Wow. Great guy.
And then I did. He's a great guy. To do this medicine, these doctors who are doing this don't make a lot of money because, it takes a long time to explain to people what you're doing. And it takes a long time to explain. Like I'll get into the process of the NAPRO technology if you want, but it just took a long, office visits were at least an hour, at least. So, he only got the same amount from insurance to do that as he would to see me for 10 minutes.
So is that book basically a great helpful, does that explain all the weeds, so to speak, of the NAPRO technology?
Yeah, it does a lot of them. And it's a good book for like really understanding how your system works.
Yeah.
If you can't like tick back to your like high school biology, it'll do good to shore you up.
Okay. I'm glad I added that to my book club.
It's a pretty good one, and it's not new. It's been around a very long time.
No, I can tell that's not a new production. But hey, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
That's long standing for a reason. If no one's rewritten it or changed that much, the technology stands. So, wow.
Yeah. And I think it's one of these books, like I had to search for it, and I had to go it was a long time ago. I was going to bookstores all over the state to just find it. So if you have it up there, it'll be easy for people to get it. Like there are no excuses. You can access this, and if I could do it, anybody can.
It's clearly still a valid book if I could source it on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. Well, it's in there. It's now in, I have because my Amazon influencer, people click on the banner on livethefuel.com, refreshing for the newer listeners. You click on the banner, it goes right to my influencer zone on Amazon. And I have 3 areas in there. I have one called like book recommendations, one called healthy finds, and one's like my gear. Like I'm a big outdoorsy nut. Yeah. And here I'll screen share again so you see how it's all laid out. But the cool thing is I can actually organize stuff. So like right now, once I've gotten there, I clicked on the book recommendations. So here's my page. You could also just go there by amazon.com/shop/livethefuel. But so right here, I've already added it in, right? It's sitting right there now.
Beautiful.
So it's like a textbook. It's like $63.
Yeah, it's not, look, when Anthony J writes a book and it's really conversational, it's distilled, he's like a Rob Wolf writer. Like they write the science in a way that's really digestible.
Yeah.
This is not that. This is not a fun read.
It's very science education. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not meant to be a $9, like throw it in and throw it out, move it on. Yeah.
I think for some of your listeners, like if you're out there and you're having like pain, like you shouldn't be in pain. You know what I mean? So that, like if you're in your 20s and you're like, I'm having pain, it's, or other strain, you search endometriosis, you can find the symptoms. But if you're having pain and things aren't like working right, like let's just uncover it. Don't wait because endometriosis causes infertility. It's a cause of infertility. So if you're like, when people now, we're starting to get married a little later and start family a little later. If you wait till you're 35 or 40, it could be too late for you, you know?
That's true. I mean, a lot of people are trying to say nowadays that thanks to modern science, people can have children later.
Hmm.
I truly believe it's not science. I think it's because you got your health and fitness dialed in,
Yeah.
and you're really staying ahead of the curve on subjects like we're discussing here today, the impacts of
Yeah.
plastics, hormones, heck, getting your DNA analyzed, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So
Yeah. And the only people who are able to get pregnant that late in life are people like you described, you know, and a lot of people don't live that way. A lot of people are still eating the standard American diet or unhealthy, and they don't even know it. Like, I had no idea I was unhealthy. I didn't look unhealthy. You know,
yeah,
I was trim and I was fit, but
it's kind of funny because you got Flutie Flakes behind you on the shelf there.
I know, isn't that, it's such a lie.
That is something you don't eat.
Of course not. That box is
but it's
like
still
older
funny.
than some of your listeners.
But that's a classic. I remember Flutie. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Great
yeah.
athlete. Great athlete.
Mhm.
So, hey,
Indeed.
I respect marketing. I respect it. Well, actually, so listen, since I brought up DNA and I brought up genes and stuff,
Yeah.
let's spend a little bit on that before we lose the show out, because
Sure.
I definitely just want to spend as much time as I could helping people understand that where you come from and why you're passionate and why you're on team. I'll call it Team Team Dr. J or AJ Consulting. So, so when you resent me I'm bringing it up here, my DNA sheet or whatever.
Yeah.
Real quick for the newer listeners, you could buy a 23andMe, whatever. That's just one of the brands, but you could buy that DNA test. Now, granted, I paid for the genealogical background and the health. Actually, it was a gift from my wife now that I remember about it.
It's so romantic.
I know, right? Because she knows I'm a geek.
Yeah.
And
she's down.
But then Anthony's like, oh, dude, you're wasting money on the health side. I'm like, why? He's like, that's just whatever they decide to spit out on their website. He's like, let me do a deep dive into that, which is what you guys do. And now there's software that you use and everything else. And then he spit me out a report. So you resent me a revised report. Let me share that here. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what you pay for, right? So they're not just going to spit you out a PDF document, which is great. And here it is. But this has been revised. So there's some newer enhancements in the software that you guys are using, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So he basically did a revision on his software, and it does go a little bit deeper. So I've never seen any of the documents from his old software, so I couldn't compare the two. It looks the same.
As far as the look and feel, it looks the same. As far as this is just style, but I mean, I don't know. I'd have to bring them up side by side.
Yeah, not worth it.
No.
You know, so that's what you would get as a client. You would receive that. And then, of course, we have a phone call where, a coach will walk you through step by step every single problematic or noteworthy gene that came up for you.
Yeah.
And just sort of suss out a little bit the background. What does this gene do? Why is it an issue?
Okay.
So we have a whole lot more information than what you have here. So when I looked at, of course, I listened to that podcast you did with Anthony to do your DNA. And then, so some of the same genes, I took the newer report from this newer software, and I went through and just sort of came up with a couple of categories of genes that were worth discussing for you. And some of them, he already discussed.
If I remember correctly, the end summary, if I can just pop in there, I wasn't that bad. Like I'm actually looking. I have pretty good genes.
Yeah, you do. And the good news for someone like you is you already live a pretty clean lifestyle. So, the genes that you do have that show up a little problematic are something that you can address. So, but what was interesting with the new software is that there was a category of stuff that, I was like, geez, I think Anthony would have covered this if this showed up in the last report. I really do. So those are a few things that we can talk about.
Okay.
So there are like 5 categories. And
tell me if you want me to scroll somewhere, by the way.
No, you don't even need to. You can keep that up if you want to. I mean, I'm going to start with your brain. I know that you already know that you have a little bit of an Alzheimer's gene that shows up, but for you, it's a non-issue because your triglycerides are so low.
Right.
But interestingly, you have this oxytocin receptor gene that makes you like less able to handle stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask my wife.
Yeah. And I think that Anthony recommended some liposomal glutathione.
Yes.
Glutathione
and actually, I'm on a 1-month break from that right now, and I need to order more. So
I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other things. I mean, and this is a good example for your listeners too, because that kind of gets a little bit deep into the sciencey stuff.
Okay.
People don't necessarily need to understand, like the gene, but it's more the recommendations that are super helpful. And like people do, like with you, is when I tell them they have this gene, like people like who are keyed into themselves are like, oh yeah, I totally have that. but you know, there are things people can do. Like some of the interventions are like, for this gene, it's like eat some dark chocolate, take a warm shower. That will increase your oxytocin, and you will be better able to deal with stress.
Okay.
You do have this sirtuin gene that is associated with decreased lifespan.
Huh.
I think Anthony may have covered this a little bit with you, but you know, most people have never heard of sirtuin, but they've heard of resveratrol, which is the red wine. I think you're a red wine drinker, so this is good for you because you
it's
can
it's the only fruit sugar that goes into my body.
It's a good thing because you've got some type 2 diabetes genes as well.
Oh, my father became type 2.
Yeah. So a lot of people take resveratrol as a supplement to increase their lifespan, but it's a total waste of money unless they have this specific gene.
Oh, okay.
But resveratrol also acts like an estrogen in your body. So if that's an issue for people, and it might be for you, we'll get to that later, is you could supplement these grapeseed proanthocyanidins. You know, that's a long, but
that sounds fancy.
Does sound fancy, but it's a supplement you can buy, and you do a 1 month on, 1 month off, and that addresses that.
Huh.
But if you're drinking some red wine, you're probably fine.
Okay.
So you do have, let's talk about the next category of genes. It's the vitamin hormone detox bunch of genes. You know, you have 6 genes plus for both of them. I should probably step back and explain. I know you probably know, but for your listeners, you have 2 copies. You know, you have 2 copies of DNA in every cell, because when you, except for your sperm and egg cells, because when those fuse together, you get like 1 copy from your mom, 1 copy from a dad, and that's how you have your 2 copies.
Okay.
And so you can have like a plus for a certain gene, or a plus minus, or a minus. And kind of counterintuitively, the minuses are the good copies, the good versions of genes.
Okay.
So when we look at you, I'm looking at you for these 6 estrogen genes. You have plus for all 6 of them, which is pretty problematic because you don't have any good form of the gene to override the bad form. And what they are.
And where are we at with this? Because I want to look at it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Are we past the heart disease section?
Yeah, we're in vitamin hormone detox.
Okay.
Way down.
Leaky gut.
Yeah, we'll get to leaky gut after too. I'm kind of going out of order.
That's fine.
It might be helpful for you to follow along. Yeah, we're in here. If you scroll down, it will say estrogen. Specifically, it will say estrogen.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. So right under there, see you have that FGFR2.
FGFR2, yeah.
Yeah. So right around there, all of these genes that I'm about to talk about are pretty much the same like narrative, so to speak. But these genes are all related to estrogen clearance in your body.
Huh.
So, and for you do not effectively or efficiently clear estrogens out of your body. And so artificial estrogens that are coming at you from the environment are, you know, very sticky. They stick to you. That sauna, I see you highlighted, they use a sauna at least 3 times a week. Sweat it out. You know, for people who haven't read the book, like, I mean, my husband read the book and he went in our basement and built a sauna because he was like, we got to get this out. But I
love saunas.
You have all of them. So, but you also are exercising too. And that is also an effective way. You got to just sweat it out. It doesn't really matter how you do it.
Well, and earlier in the report mentioned how I benefit from skipping breakfast and doing intermittent fast. I do tons. I'm a big keto guy. I do tons of intermittent fasting all the time. Like this morning, I actually had eggs and bacon because I had to go, you know, judge a CrossFit comp. But normally I can go until 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I do a lot of nutritional detoxification and cleansing as well. I'll do actual full fast for 48 hours, you know, with vitamin support. Yep. So I know that helps.
I've even found so my son is 4, and every once in a while, like, he just won't want dinner. Like, I'm not hungry. And whenever I see like a kid doing something that like nobody else has imposed on them, it kind of shows me like, okay, this is sort of the natural state. And like, he intermittent fasts all the time just by choice. Like, I'm not hungry, so I'm not eating, and it's fine. He just waits until breakfast the next day, you know?
So here's my question. Because admittedly, I've been past year or 2, I've been heavily, you know, because I tell people all the time, like, you can't knock it till you try it. So I'm currently doing extensive testing on myself, kind of an N1, on a, you know, ketogenic style, but more carnivore. So it's interesting because most of your tips in here mention eating broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale. I'm just wondering if I'm then not detoxifying that as well, because I don't eat that stuff right now.
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it, because if you're using the sauna and you're sweating while you're doing your CrossFit, you are detoxifying.
Right.
If you're not working out, you're not sitting in a sauna, these vegetables are another way to kind of sap out those
Okay.
artificial estrogens. So you're
So
fine.
it's not necessarily required.
Right.
Because I do a lot of endurance training. I'm a big cyclist. So especially
Mm-hmm.
in the summertime, like, oh, well, I'm doing 50, 60-mile rides and
Yeah.
I'm sweating.
Yep.
I get done. I got salt stains on the chin strap of my helmet. So
I don't know if Anthony talked about this in a past podcast, so you can stop me if you need to, but there's been research done with like nicotine patches, but without the nicotine.
yeah.
And they put them on people's bodies, and then they put some people in a sauna and they put some people not in a sauna.
Oh, to see how much is absorbed, like
And like the nicotine from the sauna people, those patches are like full of like BPA and phthalates and all of this gross stuff. And the
yeah.
non-sauna people like had nothing. So it's just the sweat.
Oh.
As long as you're sweating it out. The bike rides are probably the best because you're in the heat too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm in ski season now. So like
Yep.
every time we take a trip out to Colorado, the place we go to we always hit the sauna at the end of the ski day. And it's
Beautiful.
it's awesome.
And then jump in a cold shower, jump in the snow.
Yeah.
You do have one other concerning estrogen gene. You have a plus minus of it, so it's not like as dire for you as it would be for someone who has the plus plus.
Okay.
But
Is
this
that the
one,
CYP?
yeah, the CYP1 B1.
Mm-hmm.
That one, Dr. J writes about it in his book too. It's the gene, like in men, he'll see gynecomastia, like basically like man boob problems.
Oh, I had
for
that
men.
problem when I was younger. I had
got the gene.
I always felt like I had like fat behind the nipple, and I started Googling it, and I was actually, this is years ago, I thought that I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go get one of those like man boob surgeries, but I was a tall, lean dude.
Yeah.
I just had that, what do you call it again?
It's called gynecomastia.
Yeah, that's what I found when I Googled. This is like over 10 years ago.
Yeah, isn't
that's
it crazy?
Funny we're bringing that up.
Yeah, it's crazy. But really that is a result of just a lot of estrogen buildup. So now that you're sweating it out, you probably don't have that problem quite so much.
They've been gone for a while. Like,
yeah.
So I always wondered that. I'm like, what did I do? Because like I do detoxes, I'm fasting, and like I can get lean and cut. And I'm like, why do I have that? Why did I have that? It was just, I didn't have full blown man boobs, but there was definitely some collection behind the nipple region. It was just enough to like, what's going on there?
Yeah,
and then over the past 10 years, it's been gone for a while.
Yeah, and it's not only do you have just the plus minus for that gene, but you have the plus plus for a whole bunch of other estrogen clearing genes. So like you were really stacked to get that.
We did not hit this heavily on this stuff. This is cool.
Yeah, and I when we get off the phone, I can give you a little bit more information too. And then Anthony really covered. I know he already covered the catecholamines, like from last time, about how your body will rid itself of water.
Oh yeah. I'm a hydrating machine.
Yeah.
I'm a water and salt machine.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the vitamin, hormone, and detox.
Okay.
If we head over, do you want to do the diet ones and we'll talk about your diabetes genes?
Yeah.
I only pulled out genes that you had the plus plus for.
Okay.
Just kind of.
I was big on the vitamin D thing too. We could hit a refresher on that because I am taking a vitamin D3 supplement that that Vinny makes, his company.
So you have 5 genes, the plus plus version for type 2 diabetes, which you're probably not surprised to because your dad got that.
He didn't always have it. He got it like 15 years ago. So again, he doesn't live the same lifestyle we did when we grew up on a farm. So
yeah. So basically, all of them just raise your risk, the potential to get type 2 diabetes. But it's specifically for a lot of them, it's kind of tempered with it increases your risk if you're eating the standard American diet, or it increases the risk if you're deficient in zinc. And didn't your dad always tell you to take zinc? I mean, he was right.
Yeah, we did it for boosting your immune system. Yeah.
It can also, you have a gene in your body that's related to the zinc transporter. So if you don't get like 100% of your daily value of zinc, it just increases your risk for type 2 diabetes.
Well, I just ate a pound of red meat last night.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're getting plenty of zinc, right? Interestingly though, I noticed this come up in your labs that you sent over. There are 2 more type 2 diabetes related genes. And generally it can lead for you to have higher blood sugar, even if you consume the same amount of carbs like as somebody else. And I noticed, so Dr. J's recommendation is like for these genes, you want to keep your fasting glucose levels below 90.
Okay.
And while everything else I saw that I am, experienced enough to interpret on your labs, which isn't much, everything else looked awesome. Your glucose was pretty low, but it was 92.
Yeah.
So just slightly over 90. So, I don't know if that's something
I can't
that you
remember what
might want
happened
to?
that day. Oh, I know what happened that day when
Did
I
you
went and
eat
had
a
the.
Snickers?
No, yeah, right. When's the last time I ate a freaking Snickers? Are you kidding me? No, honestly, you know what I screwed up that day? They told me I had to, be in a fasted state to go and get my blood test done,
Mm-hmm.
and I, I went so fasted, like I didn't even drink water.
Oh wow.
When I woke up that morning, like they had a hard time going and actually doing the blood draws and everything
Yeah.
else. And I just donated blood yesterday, so like I do it every 8 weeks. Like I'm a regular man. I call people. It's like give your bone marrow an oil change, man. Like suck it all out and let it reproduce again. Um, that's my unofficial position on it. But yeah, I was like, dude, I was dehydrated. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and also I learned from another cholesterol expert, actually from our movie, the Fat documentary, that he's like one of the hacks, Dr. Eric, what's his name? Westman, Dr. Eric Westman. He's like, dude, you know what you want to do? He's like, you just eat a bunch of healthy cholesterol right before you go for your blood work. That actually drops your natural cholesterol levels. And people are like, what?
What? Yeah.
Yeah, because if you fast and you didn't have any, everybody gets all freaked out for their blood work. So they
Mm-hmm.
actually cut their cholesterol out. Well, now you're just telling your body to kick up natural
Yep.
cholesterol production.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that was part of it too. So yeah, I was
That's a good
too
question.
fasted.
I had a client recently who is real like emphatic about like I'm staying on this plant-based diet because her cholesterol shot up, and it's like I just sort of expose her to this other idea and then see what happens for her. But it's like people see that in their blood labs and they really misinterpret it.
Well, I tell you, actually, the biggest hack I learned also is that if you're worried about your cholesterol, well, first of all, if you're living in an anti-inflammatory lifestyle like I do, then you don't have to worry about your cholesterol sticking because your
Yeah.
blood vessel walls are not inflamed from
Sure.
the sad diet, sugars and grains and everything else, which I don't consume.
Me
So
neither.
I'm not worried about my higher cholesterol. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
they said if you really care, then go get a particles test, get a calcium
Yes.
test and a particles test.
Mm-hmm.
That's the deep dive that you really need. Would you
Mm-hmm.
agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
All
And
right.
the science of it is funny. It's so complex that I don't even bother to like get into it. I just remember like it's not about how much is there, it's about how big are the particles,
Okay.
right? That's kind of how I think about it.
Cool.
So another one I would call to your attention, only mainly because this is sort of having a moment, like metformin is having kind of a moment right now in the health industry and the wellness. But for you, in your case, you have a plus for this metformin gene. And it indicates that you're actually a poor responder to metformin. So don't waste your money. Don't
Well,
bother.
and according to most of the gurus who tell me, they don't recommend it anyway.
Yeah.
There's
No.
so many other things we should be doing, so you don't need that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but yeah, good.
You also had a whole bunch of leaky gut genes
Okay.
that I would imagine are probably rectified through your lifestyle and your diet.
So my gut's pretty bomber. It's awesome.
Yeah, I would bet your gut is gorgeous inside.
But I mean, admittedly, to prove it, that's my next step. I'm gonna get I'm gonna do a gut analysis because I'm like, all right, well, let's prove it. That's why I started with the DNA stuff. That's why I finally did the blood panel. So I'm baby stepping, and then I'll probably do a full blown hormonal analysis.
Yeah.
Because I'm a geek.
So how do you get a gut analysis? What do you do?
They test your crap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, but no, I was curious. So do they like try to tease out what kind of bacteria you have in there?
I'm still digging into it because I've had so many gut people on that everybody's got a couple different tests and different labs that they use.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna go back to my functional medicine person and see who they actually recommend.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
they're the ones who are gonna have to read it and study it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the next frontier, and we don't know a lot about it. So I'm always afraid to take, like, I'm not trying to get SIBO, so I don't want to take any, like, probiotic, but I just try to eat stuff and, like, take my kombucha and all that.
We shouldn't, again, back to purity. If you're living a proper lifestyle and consuming the right nutrition and you've taken all the other steps, like, you shouldn't need a probiotic.
Yeah.
So people who are just pumping their bodies full of probiotics on a daily basis, it's a guessing game. Because you don't even know what you're trying to help with.
Yeah,
so
and we don't know
do it.
We don't know what they address. I mean, I had to have my son by C-section, so we were both like given this full like antibiotic. So afterwards, I was
Which is terrible.
looking everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I really didn't want to do it, and I did everything I could to avoid it. But
and then he didn't pass
avoidable.
through the natural canal process, so he didn't get exposed to the natural bacteria that is on your. I mean, I've been paying attention.
I know. So there's this dairy farm. It's actually right in Foxborough, right behind Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play. There's like a huge dairy farm back there, but they sell raw milk. So I could go in and I started consuming milk again just to get the bacteria from it. But he was like a newborn, and I used to take him out and like rub his little hands around
There you
like the
go. I
barn and
played
stuff.
I played in a lot of dirt and I shoveled
Yeah.
a lot of crap when I was a kid. So
And like a lady came in and I was like, just we're just working on the gut biome. Like I'm just hoping that I'll either throw her off or I don't know. But she
okay.
didn't blink an eye. But yeah, the you do have a whole lot of plus for a lot of leaky gut stuff.
Yep.
Interestingly though, there's like a cannabinoid receptor gene that you can take. Like if you ever find yourself in a position where things get thrown off or like you have to have a course of antibiotics, something you can actually take like a high quality CBD to help shore up your gut.
Which I have, because
Yeah.
I also now have a medical card too. I don't talk
Yeah.
much on the show, but I'm like, I can get whatever I want. So
Is it? I didn't know. Is it legal? It's legal in Pennsylvania
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Now
Because
it is,
it's.
and actually they have the most stringent pharmaceutical analysis testing on the
Oh
quality
yeah.
compared to like Colorado and California. So
Mm-hmm.
I never used to talk about it. I'm like, well, if Joe Rogan can, I don't care. I work for
Yeah.
myself.
I mean, who
I
cares?
mean, so yeah,
Yeah.
I did it to get access to a pain cream, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't even really need anymore because I have my shoulder rebuilt twice. But I was like, I want to know what the stuff does.
Yes.
So try it out. So
And there's Cresser had a guy on. I can't remember the doctor's name, but he was talking about like CBD and how
yeah,
like there are different qualities of CBD, but like a
definitely.
really high quality one will almost like triage your
Yeah.
symptoms in your body. It's really
And there's a
powerful.
balance of the right THC and CBD ratios to really
Yeah.
promote anti-inflammatory benefits. There's so much stuff happening.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dig into that deeper down the road as well.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really into that.
Yeah.
Do you want to just? You have one sleep gene that's worth noting. You have.
I
You
sleep
went over.
great unless my wife kicks me.
Well, here's good. This is good news for you then. And I know Dr. J already kind of addressed most of the sleep stuff that I pulled out, but this one he didn't get into. It's kind of rare in some nationalities, more than others, but if you do get less sleep, like your cognitive memory would be pretty compromised.
Yeah.
And so this gene actually reveals is that, and there's a little bit of disagreement about this, I think, in the medical community, but for you, like nicotine is in a good like intervention. If you are like really low sleep and you have to perform, you could do like a nicotine patch or something.
Never smoked a cigarette in my life. I won't put that stuff in my body.
Well, cigarettes definitely not. Definitely not. But for some
even
people,
nicotine, I want nothing to do with it. But
I don't either. I don't like it because I just don't want to mess around. I don't know what my addiction genes look like, so I wouldn't want to put it on. But I think that's kind of an interesting one that like just sort of sticks out for me.
Cool. Oh, and real quick, just so you know, we're coming up on the close of the show because I have another one right after in a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, that's it. That wraps us up.
And actually, yeah, the D3 I think is the same thing he had last time, which just confirms. I take the D3 that Vinny created is actually designed. The D3 is a K1, K2, and the carrier is pure Italian olive oil.
Oh, beautiful. High
because
fat.
D3 metabolizes best on healthy fats. So, yeah, it's a great vitamin. So I take that. So that works for that too. Well, I'm going to print this out and compare it to my other one on file. I mean, I have it in digital too, but I want to go see how much has changed and highlight it. And then if I see a lot, because you never saw the original report. Oh, well, if you want, I can scan it and send it back to you. And
yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Check them out and see what they look like.
Yeah, I want to see how much changed on the software. That'd be a cool comparison too. So, well, this has been great.
It's a pleasure for me.
You feel like we accomplished something?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope you can use it.
I am, because I'm actually we've had a couple of episodes about seasonal affective disorder, and you brought that up in here too. And I've been thinking of buying those Aura rings anyway, just to see how my sleep is like. So, yeah, I'm a huge advocate. I mean, I use blue blocker glasses. I have a blue blocker glass overlaid over the phone.
Ooh, I want that.
Oh yeah. It's some kind of guards. I got it at AT&T, the cell phone store, but they had whatever brand guards with a Z that they sell. You can get the optional glass protection with a blue blocker in it. So I was like,
those Aura rings. The Aura rings are cool. Have you seen the Aura rings or just kind of heard about them? Like Anthony's wife has one. She let me borrow it last time she was in town, and like I couldn't believe I was having terrible sleep. Who knew?
The details are pretty impressive. That's why that's again, it's on the list.
I know.
So, well, listen, I do have to cut out and hit another show. I hope this benefited you for your first ever podcast.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Did you? Here's the thing. If you've listened to other shows, I do ask my guest co-hosts to leave behind some all-encompassing comments or a final words, if you will. And how would you like to close the show out?
I think the only message I can give is really to, for people to not be afraid to hold themselves and their medical professionals accountable for what's going on in your own body. You don't have to settle for somebody telling you something that you feel like is insufficient, but you do have to be accountable for finding the information yourself. A lot of it's out there. So you just be your own advocate.
I love that. So take accountability, be your own
Mm-hmm.
advocate.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple. That works.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, listen, hang tight. I'm getting proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, our first ever DNA coach on the Live the Fuel podcast. I think AJ might have to, trademark that. I'm not sure if that's the thing you can or not. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out this Saturday afternoon. This is what we do to help pass knowledge on in the world. Take some accountability, be your own advocate, do the self-work. We're all going to be at a different place on the timeline. It's okay. So I hope you guys had some fun. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed the Facebook Live feed as well. So thanks for tuning in with Karen Kelly of AJ Consulting. We're here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. And remember, you too can live the fuel, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.